So, what do we mean by the Great Depression? So this is my summary. The Great Depression of the 1930s refers to the global economic downturn which followed, notice not caused by, but followed the Wall Street crash of 1929. Many countries around the world were affected by bankruptcies, high unemployment and increased poverty. Perfect summation. Right, 2 sentences, that's lovely. Good work of the League. Its primary goal, international peace. And we're differentiating these because then we can say which bits will be destroyed and which bits won't. Alright, primary goal, international peace. Spoiler, that's the bit that will be destroyed. These other goals, secondary goals if you like, health, social, economic. Spoiler, these won't be. So with our definitions like this, with our introduction like this, we've set up what our argument is going to be. Our argument is going to be that the primary goal was destroyed. Yes, that's world peace. The secondary goals were not destroyed. Correct? Straight away the examiner now knows what your argument is. They also know that you're super clever. And what did I say the most important thing you have to do is to convince your examiner that you're clever right at the beginning? How do you remember I told you to picture your examiner?
Make it easy. Really tired.
Very tired, angry family, desperate to do this so they can go on holiday somewhere nice in the summer. Alright, that's the only reason they're doing this. Make it nice and easy for them. Alright, so obviously we've got to come on to the effects of the depression. So here we go. What are the effects of depression? In this sentence anyway. So number one, we've got massive internal problems for members of the League. Particularly, member countries are going to concentrate on their own problems rather than international ones. Why should they worry about what's going on in Manchuria, the other side of the world, when we haven't got jobs, we haven't got enough food to feed our own people? Some countries turn to extreme politics. National Socialism in Germany. Alright. Protectionism. Countries being selfish now, they start to look after themselves. They start to protect their own industries from foreign competition. They increase import tariffs as we've seen. This means that international trade collapses. Countries have less contact with other countries. We have the rise of nationalism. And in particular, these countries, these nationalistic countries, they can seek external solutions to internal problems. Let's distract our own people from what's happening inside our country by blaming or using or getting solutions from outside our country. So, for Japan, it needs raw materials, that's Manchuria. It needs to build a new empire, Rome, let's build up the prestige of Italy. Let's have Abyssinia, because nothing says empire like Abyssinia. Oh, one thing I realised, this is a segue, so forgive me. Abyssinia is obviously a big League of Nations, why don't people fight for the League of Nations? And a fair play to Abyssinia for this. They were then known as Ethiopia. We talked about Korean War, and how this was the United Nations not being the League of Nations. So Abyssinia, Ethiopia, was one of the first countries who signed up to fight in Korea, and they actually sent some soldiers over to fight in the Korean War, which is that when you think of Emperor Haile Selassie. So when you think about it, that's actually quite kudos on them, because they could have just said no, but they realised they were like, if somebody had fought for us in the same way somebody should, we want people to fight for South Korea, World War II wouldn't have happened. Germany and Imperial Japan, both this idea of living space, Lebensraum in German, as an external solution to internal problems. We have the rise of the influence of these revisionist countries. Japan, Italy, Germany all want to revise the international system as laid down by the Treaty of Versailles. Britain and France, their own domestic economic problems mean that they're unwilling, unable to stand up against those revisionist countries. The United States is out of it. It's been all isolationist. So it's not really getting involved. Kind of does when it comes to economy with Germany, but really it's not. And the USSR, Russia's out of the equation because it's going through its own internal, having its own internal kind of challenges. And actually this is what makes the Soviet Union seem to be the future. Because at this time, yes, the Soviet Union is internalizing its own solutions. So Stalin, who's won the power struggle with Trotsky, he has his unadulterated power. He launches his 5-year plans. Firstly, he's going to collectivize Russian agriculture. This means that Russian agriculture will therefore be able to feed more people, which means essentially it can feed the workers who it now needs to do the second part of the 5-year programs, which is industrialization. Stalin says we need to industrialize in 10 years. He says this in 1931, or we will be overwhelmed, which is quite prophetic. So what this means is that there's massive economic expansion in the Soviet Union. Huge canals are being built, huge factories. They build cities in the middle of nowhere in the mountains with lots of slave labour in the gulags. They suddenly realise we've put lots of these people in prison. The biggest concentration camps in Europe, the first concentration camps in Europe, are in Russia. The Gulag Archipelago, these little islands of concentration camps. And they're sitting there and suddenly they realise, well, we've got this lots of pool of like labour we can use. Let's get them to build things. And so they use these millions of people that are in the concentration camp system, the Gulag system, to build new cities in the middle of nowhere in Siberia. And they give them great names. My favourite is Magnitogorsk. Magnitogorsk. Sounds like something from X-Men, no? Magnitogorsk. It's going to be this big factory system of electrical power and everything else is going to be there in this brand new city. They build big cities up in the Arctic Circle. Build canals and railways. Stupid people who go over there and watch them, including like from the New York Times and stuff, say this is the future. Bertrand Russell, British philosopher, I've seen the future and it works, he says, going round a tour of these with like the corpses of the dead people being hidden under snow and stuff as they go past. Yes, this is all very good here. Alright? So this shows to people that they think communism is the answer. Communism is booming. And in fact, you looked in the 1930s, it's capitalist countries who were doing the worst, communist countries and fascist and Nazi countries who were doing the best. Therefore, if you want a solution to your economic problem, who are the best people to go? Who are you going to follow? Follow the communists or follow the Nazis? Alright? So, other reasons that we have. Whoops days, wrong way. Fear of war. Let's not remember this as well. Britain and France are still, everybody's still traumatised by World War One. The Germans are traumatised because they want to get back out there. We were stabbed in the back. If we're not going to stab in the back, we're going to win again. The British and the French are traumatised because they suffered so much they don't want to go through this again. Remember everybody, I remember this for post-Cold War as well, post-World War II as well. Everybody fought in the trenches. All of these politicians that we talk about, they would have seen their friends get killed horribly. Britain as well has another special kind of psychological trauma. Britain can now be hurt for the first time because of air power. And the British believe this statement, which the bomber will always get through. They believe that there's nothing that can be done to stop Britain from being bombed. They believe in the 1930s, 1938, 39, that within a week of going to war, 100,000 people thousands of Londoners would be dead. So add that to your question. You're the politician. You're deciding whether to go to war. Your advisors tell you that between 10,000 and 100,000 people will get killed. If you go to war, there's nothing you can do about it. Are you willing to do that? That's a difficult decision to take. But above all, it's this. World War I was supposedly the war to end all wars. Everybody in Britain and France has been told this is why you suffered. This is why your son died, to ensure no more war. Your father died to ensure no more war. Your husband died to ensure no more war. Now we're going to have another war. So they died for no more war, but here's one more. Nobody wants to understand that, because it means that essentially if you accept that, you're accepting the fact that the people you love the most died for nothing. And that's horrible. That's horrible. Nobody wants to feel that. So this is the real fear of psychological reasons that there is, and this leads to appeasement. This unwillingness to confront aggression through desire to appease. This actually leads to more confrontation and more aggression. Plus, Hitler's quite good at dressing it up in terms of fairness. Disarmament Rhineland. The other thing is, Britain and France are massively disunited. Yesterday we said the League of Nations works when Britain and France united they act. Britain and France are not united in any way, particularly after the Ruhr crisis. The British think the French are too intransigent. The British think the French are the ones who are winding up the Germans. The British blame the French more than the Germans. And the British think, well, look, we do think the Treaty of Versailles was a little bit harsh because of you, France. So if we revise it, and here we have the irony, the most significant revisionist power is probably of the Treaty of Versailles is probably Britain. For different reasons. But it's probably Britain. And the biggest problem with the Treaty of Versailles is nobody supports it. And so the British think, well look, if we are nice to that man Hitler, if we treat Germany like a good person, and we say, hey, we'll listen to your genuine grievances, and we do what we can to make those genuine grievances disappear in a spirit of compromise, we'll have peace. Now, problem with that is it would work with a Stresemann. If Gustav Stresemann is Foreign Secretary or is Prime Minister, Chancellor of Germany in the 1930s, wonderful. He's not though. It's Adolf Hitler. And that's the problem with what the British are doing. They think they can outfox Hitler. They think Hitler is thinking the same terms as they are. Which is understandable. Why would anybody want to go through a war again? That would just be crazy. You'd have to be one crazy fella to want to go to war again. Isn't that right, Adolf? Yeah, don't go to war. I love the war. Yeah, that's the problem. They don't change the policies because of the personality. They're still acting as if it's Gustav Stresemann. So let's bring our conclusion. Not all good work stopped. Health and social programs, they continue. However, the primary goal of the League of Nations was international peace, and this was destroyed. Depression was the catalyst for this destruction. Chemists, what's a catalyst?
Well, I can be a non-chemist. I can
A component of a reaction that speeds it up even if it doesn't directly participate in it.
Yeah, it speeds up a reaction. Right, it speeds up a reaction. So we could see that Germany was going along this way. We could see that the League of Nations was going along this way anyway with Corfu, our foreshadowing. Yeah, this is the catalyst. This speeds it all up. If without the Great Depression, similar sort of things might have happened in the 1940s, in the 1950s. They happened pretty straight away because of the Great Depression. Trade collapses. Countries try autarky, particularly Germany. Autarky means you just live on your own means. Increased tariffs. This increases international tensions. Countries therefore seek to settle disputes by force, and Britain and France are unable and unwilling to resist. Okay, makes sense? We just do one more. You will get an essay on this, guarantee it. Because they will definitely do one on Treaty of Versailles. I think that's my guess. So before we move on to Manchuria, which we'll do next lesson, this is League of Nations was a failure. How far do you agree? Failures, right? So Manchuria and Abyssinia destroyed the idea of collective security, demonstrating that the League would not act firmly in the face of determined aggression. This destroyed the credibility of the League of Nations. Remember, the League of Nations keeps going until the 1940s. I think it's still going until like 1945, and it dissolves itself and gives it over to the League. It's still sitting during World War II. I love the fact it's still staying in Geneva during World War II. Like the entire world's at war, and the League of Nations is still going, what shall we talk about today? It's kind of crazy. They do expel Russia though in 1940 for invading the Baltic states and Finland. Well done, League of Nations. Yes, it's still going during World War II. So from 1936 onwards. And this is the other thing about appeasement as well. Appeasement also shows the failure of the League of Nations, because you're supposed to discuss international disputes in the League of Nations, whereas actually here, Britain's trying to do it itself. Even in the 1920s, it was not always successful. Our foreshadowing of Corfu meant that it was unwilling to confront a major power. Poland also, there was also the Vilnius crisis, where Poland said we want Vilnius to be part of Poland. League of Nations says no, it's part of Lithuania, it's the Lithuanian capital, which it is today. And Poland went, meh, boo sucks, we're going to take it anyway. Success, it was a success in the 1920s, and it was small nations. Island Islands, Greek and Bulgaria. Remember, you've got to give, for these questions, you need to do both sides, and you need to say how far. Alright, your how far in the case of League of Nations, why I'm drumming it home to you, such an easy question, is in its main aim it failed, in its subsidiary aims it genuinely succeeded. That's your how far. Okay?